Hello, how you doing and welcome back to the channel. Argentina against the All Blacks in the Rugby Championship this weekend. That's what I'm going to preview in this video, go through the bits that I think are interesting looking ahead to the game in terms of the individual selections and then also the style of play of both these sides and what we could see their first games in a World Cup year. So make sure you drop a comment down below to expand on any of the points that I touch upon or anything that I don't mention but you want to have your say. You can do so in the comments section. Like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. But let's get into it. So I've dragged myself away from the Ashes. I've been fluctuating between complete frustration at what looked like England throwing away another test match and then Ben Stokes getting themselves back into it. But we're not here to speak about that. We're here to talk about the rugby and Argentina against New Zealand, the start of the Rugby Championship. I've already done my preview, if you like, for the Springboks Wallabies games. You can get that on the channel if you haven't seen it already. But as for this match, let's get right into it, shall we? Happening in Argentina. So let's start with the home side. And when I look at this Argentina squad, or this 23 that Michael Cheika has selected, it's a pretty experienced squad, isn't it, really? And you look at it, in particular the starting 15, and it's a really good international side. I don't think there's any shock, really, that they have won at Twickenham last autumn, that they have beaten the All Blacks, that they've had some really, really good results. But there has been an element of inconsistency as well, which I'll come back to in just a moment. But I think they do have the quality there now. If you want to talk about Montoya in terms of hooker, I think he's arguably the best hooker in the world, or he's in the conversation. Emiliano Boffelli, I think last year was probably the best fullback in the world in terms of some of the tries he scored, his kicking game, the fact that he kicks off the tee for them as well. So all over that team, I mean the back row as well, obviously with Matera, and I know Kramer's not here for this game, but various others. They're a really, really good side, Argentina. But despite that, I still feel like we've seen the good and the bad from this team in pretty recent times. So my question going into the Rugby Championship and then looking further afield to the rest of the season and the World Cup, or the rest of the year in the World Cup, is where are Argentina? Because I mentioned those two, probably the two best results they had last year in terms of the victory away to New Zealand and the victory away to England. And they've got some really good stuff there. But can they kick on, really? Can they be more consistent? Because I was at Twickenham when they beat England, and then a week later I was in Cardiff when they played Wales, and it was a Wales team who, as we know, were playing pretty poorly. They lost to Georgia a couple of weeks after that. It wasn't a Wales team playing well, and Argentina were pretty underwhelming, really. They didn't really show up in that game. Maybe emotionally they'd peaked a week earlier for the challenge at Twickenham. But I think that's kind of my point. That's my frustration. And my question marks over Argentina at the moment is, where is this team and can they kick on? I think the area they have to really improve and that they would have targeted if we are to see them be more consistent and get wins more regularly is in their attacking game. Because from a defensive point of view, and actually I watched Squidge Rugby's video about Argentina that he posted recently in terms of them at the World Cup, and he did a section in that about their defence, and their defensive game for Argentina I think is really, really strong. They're so physical. I mentioned that back row. They will absolutely smash you. They'll race up out of the line to try and hit the first receiver. They're quite tactical of when they aim at the breakdown and win the ball back. So defensively, I wouldn't have too many concerns about Argentina, but in an attacking sense, can they develop their game? Because we've seen them score some great tries. Again, going back to that match at Twickenham, the Boffelli try from first phase off a line out from right to left. Lovely move, and they score in the corner. But I still think there's maybe just layers to that attacking game to make them be more consistent, essentially. I think consistency is probably what we're looking for from Argentina, really. And also maybe, I don't know, the depth of Argentina. As I say, I look at their starting 15 and I think it's very, very strong. I know Kramer, as I've already mentioned, isn't available for this game, so he'll come back in. There's a few players that could come back in, but maybe also whether they have the strength in depth to go deep at the World Cup, we'll wait and see. I certainly think in terms of that starting 15 and some of the players they have there, and also the side of the draw they're on, that they have the quality to do it. Let's see how they get on in this Rugby Championship and at home as well. You never know at home. They haven't played that much at home over the last 4 years because of COVID. They were basically on the road for 3 years pretty much. They played Scotland kind of almost this time last year, wasn't it, when Scotland toured Argentina, where they finally were back in front of their fans. So look, it's good to see. Let's see how they get on. Can Michael Cheika kick on and just get a bit more out of that team? It seems like a match almost that is going to work in terms of the personality of Michael Cheika and the personality of Argentinian rugby. I'm just hoping we see a little bit more from them. Let's get on to New Zealand, because I mean, they've got some interesting selections. There's a number of positions that I could talk about. Let's head straight to fly half in terms of Damian McKenzie getting the nod. I think in terms of form and Super Rugby, you can't really argue against it, can you? Came back from Japan and has been really, really good for the Chiefs, has had an excellent season. My big question mark over him isn't his quality. It's more for New Zealand and for the coaches, in that if this was a game against the Springboks, or if this was a big game at the World Cup in the group stage or the knockouts, is Damian McKenzie going to be the starting fly half? Maybe he is, and actually maybe this is an opportunity for him to play himself into that role, but I'm just not quite sure at the moment. And to be fair, I think Ian Foster was asked this in his press conference, and he answered in the only way he could, really, which was that this is the team and the best side they think to beat Argentina, which I understand that being his response. But yeah, I think McKenzie's an interesting one. It also is perhaps interesting of what it means of how they view Beauden Barrett. Is Beauden Barrett no longer viewed as a kind of backup to Richie Mwanga, and it's going to be McKenzie and Mwanga who are viewed as the fly halves, and then McKenzie can obviously drop into fullback as well with Beauden Barrett there. Speaking of which, there are other options at fullback. I know Beauden Barrett has, I think he said previously, I'm sure I'm right in thinking he said previously that he doesn't want to play there or would rather be playing elsewhere. And I feel with Beauden Barrett at the moment that he's kind of shoehorned into the team a little bit. I know he's a legend, has had a brilliant career already, will probably or possibly break the test cap record for New Zealand. I still think his best has always been at fly half, and then we've seen Mwanga come in and be very, very good. Stevenson, I know, is an option that a lot of people would like to see at fullback for New Zealand. Will Jordan as well when he becomes available. So yeah, I'm not so sure about fullback or the 10 kind of 15 balance at the moment and exactly what they're going for. We shall wait and see. The other player that I'm not sure on in terms of the All Blacks, this is all quite negative at the moment. I'll get onto the positives because I think there are still quite a lot for the All Blacks. But the other big question mark, actually, probably more so than Beauden Barrett and the fly half position and fullback, is Rieko Ioane at 13. Because the parallels between him and George North, I think, are quite stark. It's always what strikes me, and that they are two brilliant players, but I think always have played their best rugby when they've been on the wing. And then later into their careers, I know Rieko Ioane's not that old really, but as their careers have developed, they then get put into the 13 jersey. And I kind of get it. It means that you get a pretty dangerous runner on the ball more regularly. But are they really 13s? I've always thought that George North is a better winger than he is outside centre, and I'm kind of inclined to think the same about Rieko Ioane. And I just feel like wing has always been his better position, but they seem to be persevering with 13 anyway. So there we go. That's just my thoughts on it. You can let me know if you disagree down below. Also, I just wanted to mention Shannon Frizell. I've always liked Shannon Frizell when I've seen him in Super Rugby. He's obviously a big, big body. He's got the proportions of a second row. But does he need to do a little bit more at international level, really try and nail down that back row spot? I mean, I know he's got a decent amount of caps now, but I'd just maybe like to see a little bit more from him. And that's the same as well for Caleb Clarke, who, in fact, I think a lot of the All Blacks fans don't think he should be anywhere near the team. He is still named, and I think he needs a big performance, probably a few big performances really, in terms of getting himself into that World Cup squad. But the coaches obviously like him. That's all been relatively negative in terms of the All Blacks, which isn't actually how I feel about them overall. If I look at the team, I still just think it's a very, very strong team. And I know there are positions that we could debate and players that you'd want to see come in there, but it's experienced. It's got a lot of quality. Sure, some of those combinations I think we're uncertain about, and I guess from the New Zealand perspective, it's those combinations that they really need to nail down to be able to put their best foot forward at the World Cup. Remember, they open on the 8th of September, the first game of the tournament in Paris at the Stade de France against the hosts France. That is going to be unbelievable way to kick off the World Cup, but it does mean that New Zealand have to hit the ground running. So the Rugby Championship, the warm-up games, absolutely crucial for that. Are those coaches and Ian Foster doing the right thing in terms of the way they're building this team up and the combinations they're looking at? If we want to talk about, I suppose I've mainly focused on the back line in terms of fly half, fullback, the centres, the combinations they're looking at there. Those are the big question marks that New Zealand need to answer in this Rugby Championship. They're the favourites to beat Argentina. I do think it could be one of those games because you never quite know what you're going to get from the Pumas, that it could be very, very tight. You never know. Argentina could make it into a bit of an arm wrestle. And if the game plan goes the way Argentina want it to, in terms of quite a tactical kicking battle and physicality and that sort of thing, then I think it could be tight. But I would expect that New Zealand will have enough quality to be able to beat them. But we shall wait and see. I think the first weekend of the Rugby Championship, it's always exciting. I think it's going to be fascinating in both matches because of the wider context of the World Cup later this year, and look at what teams are trying to do. I'm really looking forward to it. Enjoy the rugby, whatever you're doing, wherever you're watching it this weekend. Make sure you drop a comment down below. Do you agree with the points I've made? Do you disagree? Or do you just want to make a different point yourself? Always look forward to reading your comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, and I'll see you in the next one.